everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm really glad that you're here. So, this channel is for my fellow recovering people pleasers. Here, I am going to talk through real moments from my day to day life where I am learning to deconstruct my fawning and to live more authentically. We will reflect on what worked, what didn't, and what I'm learning along the way. So, today I want to talk about a work moment where I did something differently than I used to do, which was to raise a concern about a coworker's responsibility instead of ignoring my frustration. So, it wasn't a dramatic moment, but it brought up a lot internally for me. I noticed the irritation and also the urge to not say anything and to just do my job instead of naming the issue. That pause helped me choose a different response than I normally would have. I remember feeling both proud of myself, but also unsettled because I knew this might cause conflict. And if there's anything that people pleasers do not like, that is conflict. So, to put this into context, during the holidays, I worked at the register for a pretty well known and big bookstore. And I worked with this particular coworker. Let's call him George. So at first, things were fine between me and George, but I started noticing that he would move rather slowly with customers, which meant that I often ended up having to check out multiple people while he was still checking out one person. At first, I didn't say anything because, what are you going to do, really? But after one particular shift, we were pretty slow and it was just me and George at the register. We always had kind of odds and ends, things like maybe straightening the journals in the front, refilling the gift cards, or just putting things back throughout the store. So I noticed that when we started to get a line of customers, George would sort of start or at least continue to do one of these tasks instead of helping check out the customers. That meant that I was handling all of the transactions, even though checking out the customers is something that should come first. So the first time he did this, I ignored it. But when it happened again, I asked him politely if he could please help me because we had a line. At first, he didn't respond. And eventually, after we got an even bigger line, he helped one of the customers, but this pattern just continued when the line got bigger. At first, I wondered, maybe he just didn't hear me. But over time, it became pretty clear that he responded to other people, for example, the managers, very easily, which made me start questioning whether my voice was actually being taken seriously. So customers, they would also make comments about me needing help as well. So it wasn't just me noticing these trends. So after this happened about 3 times where he didn't respond to me asking him for help and doing the tasks that he wanted to do, I finally got fed up. And I definitely wasn't as nice as the first time. I again asked for his help. And he responded, I don't need you to tell me every time that we have customers. And I responded as, well, it seems like I need to because we're getting a line here. And then he said something about, I'm just not paying attention or something like that. And I said, well, that's, your job to pay attention. It's your job to help out the customers, especially when we have a line. So in that moment, I started interpreting his behavior as just trying to avoid checking out customers and doing the tasks that he wanted to do. And I noticed in my body that I felt anger during this interaction. And I could feel that my heart was racing. I started to shake and I was thinking, basically, I want to punch this guy. And I realized that my anger came not from someone not doing their work, because that happens at all jobs in all different sectors. I've had that happen to me before. But I was angry because I thought that he believed that he could get out of doing work and that I would do the work for him. And this was the part that surprised me. My anger, it wasn't super explosive. I got angry, but I didn't yell. My anger wasn't typical. It wasn't what you think of when somebody gets angry. My anger was more clarifying, and that felt new to me. Because before, in my younger years, I probably would have just said nothing Or if, I did ask him for help and he didn't respond, I probably just would have let it go and I would have done all of the work myself. And I probably figured it'd be easier for me to just do the work. And, I don't really want to cause any conflict. It makes me uncomfortable. If there was any sort of pushback or conflict, I probably wouldn't push it. I probably just let it go after the first time. And, initially that was my reflex. My reflex was to ask nicely and let it go and stop standing up for myself. But like I said at the beginning of this video, I did something that I haven't always done in the past. I noticed my frustrations and I noticed those grow into anger. And then that anger grew into resentment. And it started festering throughout the day, and that's when I knew I needed to say something for my own mental health. I often ignored this because I thought I could control my emotions, I could control my feelings if I just reframed it differently. And there's a psychological term for this, and it's called cognitive dissonance. And I won't get too in the weeds here, but basically, if your feelings and your thoughts are not aligning, one of them is going to have to change. So for me, instead of recognizing, hey, you're growing resentful over here, and just letting the feeling be what it was, I would try to convince myself I'm not angry. It's not that big of a deal. And, sometimes these thoughts, they can apply to life's annoyances. I mean, sometimes it is necessary to reframe it in this way. But I find as women that we oftentimes suppress our anger, especially over injustices that can hurt ourselves. For example, me having to compensate for a coworker not doing their job properly. But I have learned that if something is festering inside of you, it needs to be brought outside of you. It needs a voice. And resentment is one of the first signs that you are people pleasing. So don't ignore it. I used to view being resentful as something that was wrong with me. And if something's wrong with me, that means, hey, I can fix it. Maybe I can think it away. Maybe I can reframe it, or maybe I'll just suppress it or deny it. But I wish someone had told me sooner that resentment wasn't a personal failure. Actually, it was valuable information that I needed to pay attention to. Now, do I wish that I could have talked to that coworker when customers weren't around, or maybe got the manager involved sooner if things didn't improve? Yeah, of course. But I was actually really proud of myself for continuing to call out what I perceived as an injustice, even when I was ignored over and over again. Each time that I voiced my need for my coworker to do his job, I reinforced in my mind that my voice matters each and every time that I speak up, even if it's about the same thing over and over again. Because rarely do we speak up about something once and then it's resolved right away. It might seem like a small win, but I proved to myself that I can deal with conflict and that I won't be taken advantage of. And yeah, I mean, that coworker doesn't like me. I mean, he even yelled at me a week after that, and I ended up having to report him to a manager. But honestly, him not liking me is worth it if it means that I get to see a different version of myself that's on her journey towards recovering from people pleasing. So, if you feel comfortable, I'd love to hear how resentment shows up for you. Maybe what it feels like in your body, what sort of thoughts start to loop when it's brewing. Drop a comment if you'd like. And guys, thank you so much for being here. In the next video, we will continue to deconstruct people pleasing, one moment at a time.